Look, big political news today that there's a Muslim candidate running against Tony Burke in his seat of Watson. Do you think his position is now under threat? And do you think his personal fight to hold on to his own seat is influencing Australia's foreign policy and national security?
Look, this appears to be a very serious independent challenge against Tony Burke. It's something that's been organised well in advance of the next election with a candidate whose credentials seem on paper to be impressive. And I think it will be a very serious political threat to Tony Burke. The problem is that Tony Burke is now going to be forced to choose between his political interest and the national interest. If he wants to appease communities in his seat, he might make one decision. If he wants to protect Australians, he might make a different decision. And frankly, the Prime Minister has placed him in an enviable position. No minister should be placed in a position where they have to choose between their political interest and the national interest. But frankly, I don't have confidence that Tony Burke would make the right decisions in those circumstances. So it was a bizarre decision by the Prime Minister to appoint him to this portfolio. And it's up to the Prime Minister to reassure the Australian people that the political interests of Tony Burke won't override the national interest.
Already it seems to me that the national interest, that national security has been put at risk by the lack of concern about flying in Hamas supporters to Australia. It just beggars belief, it truly does. Look, we just, at the start of, or just before my show, we heard Fatima Payman speak in the Sky News mini documentary about having a wholesome country, about not having any division here. Yet just today, she supported the Greens in the Senate. They moved a motion to sanction Israel. No mention of the hostages, no mention of Hamas or condemning Hamas. Do you think we have seen from her moves to heal division in this country, or is she doing the precise opposite?
Well, they're fine sentiments, but I don't think Senator Payman or the Greens have lived up to those sentiments. In fact, since the 7th of October, both of them have sought every opportunity to weaponise this conflict for political purposes. Nothing is gained by this endless moving of motions in the Senate, except elevating the political interests of Senator Payman and the Greens. They know before they move these motions that there's no prospect of them passing. If they wanted to pass the motions, they would word them very differently. They would include condemnations of hostage taking. They would include condemnations of Hamas, but they don't do that because this is about politics, not about bringing our country together. So I think we should look at those words from Senator Payman and others in that documentary as hollow words, as insincere words, and I think she should reflect, if she really wants to deliver those outcomes in Australia, a different approach is necessary.
Look, we've heard the head of ASIO say on multiple occasions now that politicians need to be careful about their language so that he's effectively saying so that it doesn't incite violence or make the situation worse. Already the terror threat level has risen to probable, meaning there's more than a 50% chance of a terror attack in the next 12 months. Do you think the Greens here really need to listen to the ASIO Director General's words, because they are continually and wrongly accusing Israel of genocide, of deliberately targeting civilians, and that makes people angry when it couldn't be further from the truth?
I'm deeply concerned about this, Shari. I think it is a very significant risk, and we've seen the increase in the terrorism threat level in this country, that people could be incited into committing an act of violence in our country in response to inflamed tensions abroad. And all of us as political leaders have an obligation to turn down the temperature, not turn it up. I think the Greens have been easily the worst since the start of this conflict, where they've sought political advantage out of this, where they've amped up the conflict rather than turned it down, where they've made baseless claims, for example, about Australia supplying weapons to Israel in this conflict, something that is not factual. And the only reason why you would do that is if you want to rile people up to take political advantage out of it. That's irresponsible, that is dangerous, and I fear it'll end very badly.
Do you think maybe the boss of ASIO needs to provide a specific security briefing to the Greens, given we are seeing aggression outside the offices of politicians that is dangerous?
In my experience, security briefings like that are always on offer and always available for those who want to take it up. Whether the Greens would be willing to take up a briefing like that, let alone take out the lessons from that briefing, is another question.
All right, James Paterson, really appreciate your time as always. Thank you.